We're rolling.
Okay, thanks for coming again, everybody, for our second digital meeting here. A few things just to get out of the way really quickly. We have no time limit for this meeting. We've upgraded our Zoom account for several reasons, for security reasons primarily, but we have no time limit. Also, I just want to mention here, for anybody who's going to watch this later, the accuracy of information coming out has been very difficult. As of this time when this is recorded, there are no confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the town of Triangle, also the village of Whitney Point, obviously. With that said, please continue to practice social distancing, stay home, all of that stuff. That's the only way we're going to manage to keep it that way. It's all around us, so please take it seriously. With that said, we'll move on to the agenda. Minutes from the March 25th board meeting. Does everybody have a chance to review the minutes?
I have.
Adam, I also see a couple of us have muted. I think that would be a great idea for us all to mute except when we're going to talk, because I am hearing some feedback looping around the thing.
Yeah, I agree.
All good with the minutes? I'll look at the shaking heads. Okay, the minutes will stand as written. That brings us to a public hearing for the budget. So what we did with this was we advertised it in the newspaper, and people could call in if they wanted to comment on the budget. So Linda, do we have anybody?
Nobody has called in.
Okay. So the public hearing was opened. Nobody has called in. The public hearing is closed. The only thing I will say before opening discussion on the budget is that this is the most uncertain budget that we've probably ever had, being this situation that we're in with COVID-19. So we're certainly going to need to modify this budget and keep a close eye on it going forward. So with that said, I will open the floor for discussion and/or seek a motion and a second to pass it.
That means you need to unmute your stuff to speak.
I'll move it.
Nate's coming on.
I'll second it.
But we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any discussion?
I think I noticed that there was no, I forget the technical term, transfer of money. Let me look and see. I'll look in the budget and try to get back.
When you say transfer of money, what are you referring to, Bob?
To balance.
No. What it is, that comes up under the sewer rate discussion later on. And that will help resolve that issue. There's no interfund transfer if that's what you're looking for. There is none.
No, it's a balance, reserve balance, or
We're going to hit the reserve. The way it's set right now is we're going to hit the reserve for sewer by $31,800. Hi, Nate. We're in session, just so you know.
Yeah, I figured. I ended up trying to join the wrong meeting. I guess I mixed up the meeting IDs somehow.
That's not a problem.
So it was in the general fund, the trial balance, there was nothing for appropriated reserves.
No, our general fund is fine. Our water is fine. It is sewer that we're going to be short 31,800, and the library at this point is also short 74.85 or 58 without looking at it here. 74.58.15. They're short at this point, but they are also taking their budget to the school board for it to be passed, which will then affect their budget. So at this point, our water and sewer are fine and they balance with no problem. Our general and our water, I'm sorry.
After the meetings that I have had over the past couple days, I would say that going to the school is going to be tricky. The state budgets are going to be very, very tight. The school's
Absolutely.
already informed us that things are going to be quite tight.
Absolutely. It's going to be that way everywhere. As I told Ryan prior to this, our sales tax is due now. We should get a payment anytime this month. Going into this, we were at 79% of what we projected. We've earned 75% of what we had projected for the year. So we're going to take, I'm sure we're going to take a hit this quarter. And as Ryan said, we're probably going to take a hit next quarter as well at this rate. So we're going to have to be very cautious.
Yeah, I mean, budgets are always a blueprint more than an actual, you know, it's a blueprint more than it is construction. So our actual construction process throughout the year, as I'm calling it, is going to have to be watched very closely because of both this, the issues caused by this crisis, as well as, you know, we're potentially adjusting our sewer rates. So just a lot of moving parts right now. So I think Mike had made a motion, right?
Bob made the motion, Mike seconded the motion.
Okay, Bob made a motion, Mike seconded it. Was there any other discussion?
Any
Okay.
thoughts, Jason?
I'm not happy with the whole thing. I'm not content with the way things are now. But we have to pass a budget.
In the general fund or the sewer or all? of it?
Specifically with the sewer, I think we made some mistakes, and I think those mistakes were made because we didn't do what Ryan's suggesting as far as staying on top of things and going back and recomputing the numbers. And we need to make sure we do that, or else we're going to be in an even worse situation next year.
I agree, and Linda and I have been talking for the last couple of weeks, and what I want to have us do is find some type of process where the whole board, all of us as a body, can look after every single, like probably quarterly, have some type of actual versus budgeted figures where we can look. So for instance, after the first billing of water and sewer, we can see, okay, we're hopefully at, you know, around 25% projected. You know, by the second quarter, if we're drastically behind, you know, that'll get our wheels turning. And then 'cause by the third quarter, like we caught it, you know, during our budget process, it kind of puts us behind the 8 ball, so to speak. So
It put us too far behind, too late in the process.
Yeah. So what that process will look like, I don't know, but we need to have something, I think. All right, so is there any other discussion? All right, then we'll call the vote. We're not in order, I guess. So we'll go Jason,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Danielle.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next agenda item is a resolution to forward the unpaid water and sewer bills to Broome County. So
I'll
we
move it.
do every year. Okay, we had a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And second, do we have any discussion?
Just so you all know that they are up again this year from where we normally are. So every year we continue to go up, and it's not any different this year. We're going up about 900 to 1,000 every year in terms of unpaid water bills from our municipality. Who seconded the motion, by the way? I'm sorry, Jason?
Okay, is there any other discussion? All right, then we'll call a vote. Jason,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Jedi Hopner.
Yes.
Thank you. The next resolution is a resolution to execute the tax warrant in partnership with the budget.
I'll move it.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion? Okay, we'll call a vote. Jason,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Danielle.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The next resolution is an extension of the COVID-19 containment measure that we voted on last meeting to essentially provide for our employees salary, benefits, so on and so forth through this. Our plan is to, board willing, continue to extend this at each meeting and then reevaluate the situation and the need for it to continue. At this point, I certainly do not see the office being open at any point in the next 2 weeks before the next meeting. New York on pause has been extended through basically to the end of April by Governor Cuomo. So I would recommend that we do extend this to our next meeting. And with that said, I'll open it for discussion.
I agree with that. That's the only real discussion I have.
Is that a motion, Danielle?
Sure. I move
Okay.
it.
I'll
Thank you.
second it.
We have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any discussion?
How's this affecting like Ken, or is he still available to the public, or is he?
He is still available to the public. He actually has been in the office. He's been responding to emails, responding to things that people have sent in. He does at times have appointments with people, one-on-one, depending on what their projects are.
Okay.
He was just here Monday night, matter of fact.
One of the big projects, just so you're all aware, that he's working on right now is Rose Young Stewart's site plan and that process. That's one of his big focuses right now.
I was by there today, so you all know. They actually have a crane in there, like they're getting ready to demolish the left out remains of the house. So.
Do we have any other discussion related to the COVID-19 containment measure? All right, then we'll call a vote. Jason,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
thank you. And now we will turn over the floor to our attorney. How are you, Nate?
Oh, hanging in there. How's everybody?
Doing okay.
Okay.
Good.
Good.
Anything to report, Nate?
Sorry, this whole muting, unmuting thing is really killing me. Nothing particularly new to report at this point. If anyone has any questions about anything, of course, let me know and I can weigh in as needed.
Okay.
Anybody on the board have a question for Nate? All right. Nonverbal communication tells me no. Thank you, Nate. That brings us to the clerk treasurer's report.
I sent to all of you the month end for March. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know.
How are we doing on vouchers? I know we're like really behind. Is that going to start being a problem soon?
At this point, we have a couple different options. I could scan every single last one and email them all to you, which I prefer not to do at this point.
Yeah, that sounds like super fun.
Yeah, let's say no. Can do that. That's an option. And I also, if I see something really out of whack, I can make you all aware of that at this point. Nothing has been out of whack at this point. There's been nothing really crazy. At some point, we will have to go back and sign them. So that's the option. I could email them and send them to all of you, and I don't want to do that.
Bob's laughing like he almost wants it to happen.
So does Mike.
You can't see my face. I'm innocent.
Okay, anything else for the clerk treasurer?
Bob's cracking me up on that.
Okay, that brings us to the code enforcement report, which I believe was emailed, right?
All the reports have been emailed.
Okay, thank you.
Every report has been emailed, including sewer. So.
For some reason, I can't find code enforcement in my,
Yeah, I'm looking through mine too, and I'm not finding it either.
He basically had 5 permits year to date. He issued 1 sign permit. He's got 2 pending sign permits, 3 site plan applications, 2 variance applications pending, complaints of an uninhabitable building, a building without a permits, a property maintenance, none in court, and 24 hours of mandatory training in February before all this hit. And there was no notes.
thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Does anybody have any questions or comments about code enforcement?
Nope.
Okay, so I'll move right on to the fire department report. I don't have the report in front of me, so I don't know if it made it on there when Greg submitted it, but some of you may or may not know there was a fire in the village 2 or 3 days ago. It was in the Route 11 apartments near Dunkin' Donuts. Just a stove fire? Is that what I,
Yes, that's
is that
what I,
correct, Bob?
yes.
Yeah, and just so you know, we had a fire later that day up in the town of Barker, another apartment fire.
Wow.
Does anybody have questions or comments about fire or anything to communicate to the chief?
He had turned in his report that has to get turned into the town of Triangle and the town of Barker. It's been sent to both and given to both. We also are at a point that we need Greg to sign his quarterly report for us to get our revenue from the town of Triangle. So, but with this COVID-19, having him come into the office is hard. And they understand that at this point.
Any other discussion, question, or comments about fire? Okay, so we'll move on to the library report. I had no library-related questions or comments. Does anybody on the board, did everybody have a chance to review it?
Again, I don't see a library report in amongst my documents.
Okay. Linda's got it. Hold it real close to the camera so you can read it. You're muted, Bob. You're muted.
She's got to be talked so when she becomes the big person, I have no chance of seeing that in a little fun. Can you just tell us, Linda, again, anything?
Linda's muted.
Thank you, Ryan. She basically just said that they submitted their bare bones budget. They have no money for a summer program at all. The book budget was cut to $5,000. They still do fundraising, but they're nowhere near being balanced budget, which we knew. She obviously talked about the referendum going on to the school budget, said that the library is closed, given difficulty to sanitize library materials, but it is, obviously they're working on that. They're going to sanitize whatever comes back for 14 days after they come back. The book drop is locked, and so they're not accepting anything right now, nor are they checking any materials out, and obviously everything is closed. She is going in to check on the building a couple times a week.
Thank you, Linda.
Yep.
Anybody on the board have any questions or comments pertaining to the library?
I'm just curious, does anybody have a feel for why their budget is suddenly out of whack? I mean, they started the new funding stream and it seemed like that was going to be very sufficient.
From what I have seen, they are very high in terms of book purchases, or DVD purchases. They spend a lot of money that way. The other part too is they have increased salaries to meet minimum wages for New York State. So.
They
Any
enacted
other
similar, sorry, Ryan. They
No,
enacted
go ahead.
similar measures to pay their employees throughout this, or?
She did state in this report that, obviously in their budget, they did include in there the minimum wage increase for this year. So I believe, if I remember right, she did not have a raise in her line this year.
But who's getting paid through the time when it's not being staffed?
She is anybody who is scheduled to work. So it's her and one part-time Saturday employee. Their board agreed to do that.
Does anyone have any other questions or comments about library? All right, then we'll move on to Public Works.
I will say also that Jim was in today for a few minutes, and he said that he and Scott normally have taken one day or the other, and so they're not working together. They're usually alone, unless there's a leak. They actually do have a leak right now at the River Street pump house in Lisle. That pump house is shut down because of the leak. W2O cannot come out right now unless it's an absolute emergency to help find out where this problem is. So Jim and Scott have been trying to dig and see where the problem and find the leak. So far, they have not been able to find that leak, though.
In addition to the report, I'll mention that we did cancel the yard waste collection, which we perform ourselves. Our DPW does. Many municipalities have done that, and we may do the same for May. It's just the idea that spreading any type of material between resident to village staff, and then back in a, just it's a COVID-19 containment measure to have canceled it. We may do the same for May. In April, I don't think it affected too many people. Not many people have, been trimming hedges or mowing lawns yet, but that will obviously increase in the near future. So we'll have to play it by ear and see how it goes.
In May, we normally have 2 pickups. So, depending on what happens, you may be able to do one and not the other. You just have to wait and see. But there's usually 2 in May.
So do we have any questions or comments about Public Works? All right, then we will move on to the sewer report. We'll discuss the sewer rates here very shortly, but does anybody have any questions or comments about the sewer report itself or the operation of the plan or anything like that? Okay, thank you. Then we will move on to, but now that we passed our budget, it's time to pass and send both the town of Barker and the town of Triangle our proposed fire contracts. So first on the agenda is the town of Barker fire contract. That is in the amount of $49,454.30. Just to refresh everyone's memory, Barker's contract is the one that starts on June 1st. So that is the most time pressing of the two.
What increase did we settle on for that?
I believe we budgeted for 5 on both, didn't we, Linda?
We definitely did not. I do not believe we did 5 on Barker. We definitely did 5 for Triangle. We might have done 5 without stopping the meeting for me to look at the present moment. I can't tell you, but I can tell you after the meeting's over and I stop recording. for sure.
And the increases that we send, or as you guys all know, we've talked about this probably too much over the past couple of years. The increasing costs for everything. The village fire department can't continue to go no percentage increases or even 1% increases. So that's the reason for proposed increases. Does anybody have any questions or comments, or does anybody want to make a motion to move that fire contract to the town of Barker?
I'll move.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any discussion? All right, we'll call the vote. Jason,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Danielle.
Yes.
Thank you. That brings us to the Town of Triangle fire contract, which runs January. This one would start January 1st, 2021, for the amount of $55,277.25.
I'm just going to move it.
I'll
Sounds
second.
good. We have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any discussion? Okay, then we will call the vote. Jason,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Danielle.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to the discussion for sewer rates, which is going to be the most difficult thing to discuss, both in nature and by the premise of we're doing this digitally. But in a nutshell, to try to frame the discussion for everybody, get everybody on the same page, and for any residents who are maybe watching. In a nutshell, our sewer fund, the sewer operation is not running up to par as far as revenues go. Our costs have surpassed our revenues. We made a sewer rate change, I believe, 2 years ago now. We had, during the construction project, during the bridge, our numbers for sewer looked great. And I think that, at least in my own mind, speaking for myself, I didn't, when I saw that our numbers looked great, I thought that was basically due to our rate change, and that had made our sewer fund, black. And to take it back even further, in the past, our sewer fund was reliant on revenue, an interfund transfer from the water fund. So we, as a body, have worked to make each fund self-sufficient. So no transfer of revenues from the water fund would be needed to make the sewer fund whole, so to speak. So keep that change in your minds too for where this all, began. So, we noticed this during our budget process, and to get the sewer fund back on track so it is breaking even, we need to look at how to accomplish that. Looking at the budget for the sewer plant for next year, which will begin June 1st, there's not a whole lot on there that can be cut. Our biggest controllable expense, as is with any enterprise, is usually payroll. I went through, Linda and I had a lot of discussions about this. I went through and I looked at the number of hours that all of our new crew, which just started this fiscal year, worked, and I averaged them out so we could see, because there was some great variety. There were weeks as low as 28 hours, and there were weeks as high as 50 hours. But I averaged them out, and it came out to be about 39 and some decimal point hours per week, which is right where our expectation is. Our expectation is essentially 2 hours every single day, and then pressing takes 6 to 8 hours depending. So the amount of time that our crew, which we are very happy with their operations and their skills and so on and so forth, averages out to be about right where we expect it to be. So reducing payroll and controlling the expense of the sewer fund from that aspect wasn't too viable. Did have a conversation with Jeff, and who is, in practice our lead operator, and communicated as much that if we can save payroll, that's great. It's our biggest controllable expense, but I will obviously never ask our guys to walk away from a problem. And I think that we all agree, we're all on the same page, that they have been doing very well as far as addressing issues go and being proactive and taking care of our plant. So to set up the discussion, we researched the sewer rates of other municipalities. From what I found, which I obviously can't research every municipality, but from what I found, our current rates are still essentially the lowest of any municipality that I researched. The current sewer rate is $45 for the first 1,000 cubic feet per quarter, and then $3.50 for every 100 cubic feet thereafter. That is our current rate. With that said,
Can you
Linda,
say that again, Ryan?
yeah, the first 1,000 cubic feet is $45 as of now. And every 100 thereafter is $3.50. You're good?
Thank you. Yep.
Yep, you're welcome. So with that said, I'm gonna let Linda take it from there. She put together a pretty comprehensive presentation, but trying to simplify it down. So digitally here, we can try to, see where we're at, and then look at the proposed solution, and then see how we feel about it and tinker with it from
Might as well
there.
take advantage of my ability to not be present and be present at the same time.
What, Nate?
Oh, sorry. Apparently I somehow hit the unmute button. Apologies.
Nate, can I actually ask you a question while you're unmuted?
Oh, sure, of course.
So as the board will be considering a sewer rate change, I'm trying to map out the timeline here. So our newest bill will go out. The billing period has closed. So that bill will go out May 1st. So what is the timing of when the village adopts a new sewer rate and when it can go into effect? So our next billing period would begin May 1st.
Right. And I always have to double check on this because it's either water or sewer. You're required to hold a public hearing prior to adjusting their sewer or the rate.
I think it's sewer, Nate.
Right. And so
We just did water not too long ago with Jason. We changed the rates there.
right. So in that case, you would need to have a public hearing at your next meeting. And I think you could then have that take effect your next billing cycle.
Which would be August or
whichever the next one would be. And so how did this line up again? So you're about to send a bill out?
Yeah, we're getting ready to send a bill out May 1st.
And that's for service from when to when?
From the last bill went out February 1st. So February, March, April.
Okay, so this next bill, you bill in anticipation, not, you bill prospectively, not retrospectively.
Retrospectively, we bill retrospectively.
Okay, so the May bill was for February,
March, April.
I see. So yeah, I think it would take effect in your August billing cycle, or with the August bill that goes out.
So if the board does not, and I'm not trying to put a rush on this by any means, I just want everything to be, apparent. If we do not adopt a sewer rate change before that billing cycle begins, would that moved to the following billing cycle, or can it be changed mid-billing cycle?
I think that you could change it mid-billing cycle, but that would create a giant headache for someone in the village clerk's office.
Okay.
to work that out.
Someone.
But you know, it would effectively be whenever the date of the change is, there'd be a partial bill. You'd have to somehow show the service related to that, you know, week or two or whatever it is, and then later service at the higher rate. It's just easier to time it all with billing cycles.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So Linda, you want to take it from there?
Sure. So basically what I've done is I've gone through and I've actually looked to see, when we had our budget meeting, we were talking about, you know, why is water different than sewer? Why are we, you know, we're not bad with water, you know, all that sort of stuff. Right now, with where we're at today, we've taken in 68% of what we actually budgeted for water, against, you know, where we're at. If we look at taking this for May billing, throw that May billing in there, May billing included, so that's 4 quarters, we will end up being short, projected to be short $27,517. Again, this is all on averages and the assumption based on calculations of water readings and stuff. Who knows with this last billing cycle if it's going to be higher because so many people are home. Don't know that answer yet. But right now we're looking to be $27,500 short in water. I think part of that where that came into is we adjusted the debt to do with water. The budget was never, that was done after the budget was prepared. We never adjusted the budget to go along with our decrease in debt collection. So overall, we've only taken in approximately 41% of our debt, what we budgeted for our debt and water. So we are going to be short in water this year at that point. So just so you're all aware of that. I have looked through all the water readings since 2016, and this chart shows you where we are. And as Ryan had mentioned, that 1 year, which you can see the high peaks, they are much higher than the other years that have, other periods that have been associated. So that one period of time, those 4 readings are just really high. And that was around the time of the bridge construction. But the other, if you look at the rest of the chart, it pretty much just balanced out and leveled out to roughly the same amounts. So it's not like we've had a super decrease in water usage. It's just that we don't have that project going on. In the same token, I've looked at where we're at with our sewer. This is where we're at actually right now. We have taken in approximately 61% of what we have budgeted for this year. We budgeted $169,765. We've not taken in anywhere near that amount. We've actually only taken in $103,587. So we are really short in that perspective. So we overestimated our budget for this year. There's just no way around it. So we are looking at a $31,650 range shortfall with our sewer for this year alone. So it's not just the water. So we're going to have issues with both of them. So right now, Bob, this is what you were asking about. This is what the rates were: $45 for the first 1,000, and then $350 for every extra 100 cubic feet thereafter. We took the spreadsheet that we did for the water, Jason, and we flipped it and made that into our spreadsheet for sewer. Used the same things, just put in those dollar amounts with the rate of $55 for the first 1,000 and $450 for every 100 cubic feet after. It covers our shortage and brings us up to where we need to be. Not extra to build for a reserve, by no means, but it gets us where we need to be, which brings us into this one. So did do that. We used the same thing that we used for water when we did the calculations for the water rates. Okay, so that's just a brief, short synopsis of why we need to do something and how desperate we are to do something for this.
And the usage numbers for these were based on
Water,
where it leveled out
yes,
in that chart. So
yes,
pre all bridge project,
yes,
those are the numbers we use to estimate
yes,
these.
yes. I believe these were an August reading that we used when we could calculate everything, Jason, when I went back to it. So
And for a typical user, what are we looking at increase
So
wise?
I will use mine for an example. Okay. We're a household of 3. The ladies love to wash. My aunt has a garden, and it would come up to approximately a $22 bill increase. Others that have roughly 2 people in a house, based on their usage, their bill would increase about $14. Some people with a high family of 6 would roughly increase $49 to $50, depending on usage. Again, it's all dependent on usage.
That's only quarterly, right? Because
That's
it's
quarterly, correct?
Yeah. Okay.
Quarterly, correct.
So somebody with a minimum bill would go up $40 total a year with the absolute minimum.
I really don't think that's asking a lot. $40 for a year. That's just me.
So, some others with a family of 5, 2 teenagers and a younger one, in a pool would be roughly $28 an increase.
I mean,
I kind of just want to clarify a little bit, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
The difference between the base rate and the additional usage rate, there's pros and cons to raising both. And I assume these are analogous to the water usage, so I'm just going to use the reasoning I used for that. Increasing the base rate does have a harder effect on the minimum users, obviously.
$10 a month more.
But it creates less volatility with water usage. So the problem we're running into now is not that we, planned wrong or did whatever. It's just because the water usage is down, because the sewer rates were more volatile. We have more of the fee in that additional box. We're seeing it hit harder here than we are seeing it hit in water because of that. So if we were to raise the per 100, the additional per 100 rate, that does not affect the minimum users at all,
Correct.
but it creates more volatility going forward. If we have another drastic drop in water usage, we're going to be in the same problem. So I like the fact that you distributed it between both.
Yeah,
because
it's
that does kind of balance.
the way it's calculates out right now. It's about a 21% increase for all users, and then the additional users, it's about a 26% increase, again depending upon how much usage they use. But
And
that covers what we're short.
And again, I think everybody here agrees, we feel nobody likes to increase rates for anything ever, but realistically the costs of, I was talking with some people passingly about this. We also have to grapple with, our plant isn't a spring chicken anymore. It's not a brand new plant. I think some of us still think of this as a new service, and in the village's history, it seems that way. But that plant isn't exactly new anymore, and it's only going to require more maintenance over time. And that's why investing in the plant and having our new crew do the work that they're doing is important to, in the long term, extend the life of that plant to, avoid further capital sized projects. So, I think it goes without saying that we all hear nobody likes to increase rates for anybody. But we have to take care of our residents, take care of our infrastructure. And that's why we're here having this discussion.
The sad part of all of it, it doesn't help build a reserve, Jason, that we try to do with everything to help cover for when this equipment goes down. This is not allotting for that. This is just getting us through what we have to get through.
So officially, I think we need to put on an agenda here, a work session to try and at least sort of formulate collection for a reserve fund for sewer O&M, so that
Agreed.
when these major failures start to happen as predicted in 10 to 20 years of operation, that we can address those without cutting too far into our bottom line.
That's definitely a good, I mean, it needs to happen one way or another.
And I like the way we do the vehicle reserve fund. The way I assume we have to put this up referendum, and it's going
Nate,
to have to be
that's a question
renewable.
for you.
So again, you can create a reserve fund actually, and it would be, in this case, well, there's a couple different types of reserves you can do. You can do a capital improvement for the sewer. You could do a capital equipment reserve, and depending on how we word it, they could be the same. You could also do a repair reserve that's specifically for repairing. They each all have different requirements, but typically it's actually just a simple resolution by the board to create the reserve. And then your normal sewer process for raising the rates, hold a public hearing. And then you could say, whatever the number is, you're going to allocate into the reserve fund each year. So the creation typically pretty easy. It's actually when you spend out of it that it might be subject to a referendum, either permissive or mandatory.
No, I know the way we do the vehicle reserve fund is we put that on the ballot every 3 years. And that is based on property values, I believe, right, Linda?
I believe so, yes.
I don't know if we can or should do the same thing with the sewer. I'm not even advocating we talk about it now. I kind of want to make sure that we at least start thinking about it, and just realize these are the questions we need to answer, and we need to answer them fairly short order.
Yeah, I think that's always, I mean, anytime you always say, yeah, we'll figure that out tomorrow never comes. So
We're
I think
at
that's a good
tomorrow.
idea.
We're at tomorrow, basically.
So how does the board want to proceed? I may have to change seats here in a moment. My phone is at 2%, but how does the board want to proceed with this? Do we want to schedule a public hearing to consider adopting this? Or do we want to take more time to analyze it?
I would think we probably need at least a work session to work through some numbers first.
For the rate itself?
For the, we're talking about the reserve fund, correct?
We're talking about doing an increase in rates right
We're
now.
going back to the sewer fund. Sorry, I didn't realize we had changed topics.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Or reverted to the original topic, right?
Or revert to the original, yes.
So if we want to, put this rate into practice, we would need to schedule a public hearing for our next meeting.
And if we had that at that next meeting, we still can't change the rate until August?
Correct.
Well, what would happen?
The
I think
August billing.
The August billing,
of
the
our
rate.
fiscal.
What
Right,
was
the
that,
rate
Nate?
would be in effect for the May cycle, the
Right.
cycle starting in May, which gets billed in August.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure. I'm not really sure we have much choice here, folks. I mean, we have to close that gap, and to get it started sooner than later would be beneficial, I think.
I agree with Bob. I totally think that the sooner the better, and then we can talk about a reserve fund and how we go forward after we've already decided to raise it.
So I will consider that a motion to schedule a public hearing for our April 22nd board meeting by Bob and a second by Danielle.
Sounds
Do
like
we
a
have
deal.
do we have any further discussion for the time being?
Are we going to have a work session though to deal with the
Reserve.
sewer reserve? Yeah, we need to.
Yeah, we need to do that.
Yeah, we just need to get all of us on the same page as to when that can take place.
Okay.
Ryan, you just flipped sideways. Okay, Ryan's phone died. He's coming over to my computer.
6 feet people.
We'll practice 6 foot here.
Okay, so I'm keeping my social distance. We had a motion, we had a second, I almost fell over the chair. Is there any further discussion? Okay, we'll call the vote. Jason?
Yes.
Oh, your speaker quality is really good. Bob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Danielle?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Linda, for doing so much legwork on that.
Yep.
That brings us to new business or old business. Does anybody have old or new business? I don't have any right now, other than there's still a lot of things that we need to check into. We had talked about applying for a grant for businesses that would be hypothetically due to the state in during the CFA process in July. I do not know where that stands at this time. I don't know if the CFA will go forward or not, so I have to follow up with Toma on that.
I have one thing under old business. I have been on the phone with the insurance gentleman for the home that had the fire and the lady is displaced. The value is not as high as you all would think at all at this point. They have been told, though, that the board's decision was that the village needs to be issued the check along with the resident to ensure that the property is cleaned up after the fire. And they're supposed to be issuing that check in the very near future. Okay.
Does anybody have any old or new business? All right, then the meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Miss you
Thank
guys.
Yes, yes, you guys do.
Are you thinking of trying to schedule that
The work session?
work session once we end the recording here of this and all?
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay, so Nate, do you have anything else for the meeting?
No, I'm all set unless, again, anyone has any questions about anything.
Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording. Anybody for officially?